Perfect. Well, yeah, looking at the agenda here, we'll do a little bit more welcoming to start things off, and then we do have Matthew Miller with us to talk a little bit about his background with some retail experience, and additionally mix that in with Tableau and the future of analytics over here with the tool. And then following Matthew, we have a little bit of a Data+TV collab with the broader Tableau initiative. So I think it's the first time in retail tug history that we'll get to see something from the creators of this tug. So the organizers have pulled some stuff together, and we've got a bit of a competition to announce as well with Data+TV. Wrapping that up, we've got the results of the logo contest. So excited to show off what the community's pulled together and start some voting as well. And then we'll go ahead and wrap. So action-packed session for today. And all that being said, and one more call out too on welcome back. We always encourage everyone to use hashtag retail tug on all of your social medias, LinkedIn, X, wherever it is. Let us know what did you enjoy? What could we do better? Always looking to get the broader community involved here and hear what you guys think. So with that being said, Matthew Miller, I will hand it off to you. Super excited to have you and looking forward to hearing what you have to share.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Ojo. And hey, Retail Tug, great to see you all. It is a delight to be here. Do I still have 25 minutes, including Q&A?
Absolutely.
Love it. All right. I'll try to be good about the clock. I love you. You found I think that's my LinkedIn profile picture. That's from when I lived in Europe and was much younger. And I like to joke that since that photo, I've migrated west and my hair has migrated south. It's just all down here now. It's all salt and pepper. And as you can see, I don't like to do long intros. I think some of you have met me before. I've been in the Tableau world a really long time. Maybe for a little bit of engagement though, put in the chat the first version of Tableau that you used. My first one was version 6.1. A friend of mine reached out and said, "You ever heard of Tableau?" I said, "No, but I took French in high school so I can spell it." And I Googled it and downloaded it. I've still got that welcome email. "Oh man, Ojo, I got you by like .1. That's it. That's really early." And it blew my mind. I mean, I was working in a technical pre-sales role, and I had this Excel file with sales data about my partners, and I dragged it in. I didn't Google anything about it. I didn't watch any videos. I just dragged it in, and instantly I had these visualizations. I saw an outlier in my data. I'm sure the time series I built was ugly. I probably used default fonts and colors, but it was awesome. I saw stuff I hadn't seen before, and it was so fluid and easy. And so that started my journey. I joined a company called Interworks as a Tableau consultant. It's funny, they hired me as a senior Tableau consultant and sent me to one of the world's biggest companies. And all I knew about Tableau at the time, besides how to spell it, was how to open Tableau desktop. I didn't know measure names and measure values. And I just had to figure it out. I mean, it was like dropping a kid in the deep end to teach him to swim. They sent me on site to a customer. And I remember like in the mornings, I'd get up at the hotel and study and study and study and try to figure things out, and then just try to survive a day with the customer, giving them some value. And at the end, like studying, calling colleagues, going, help me figure out how to use parameters. I had a background in business and data and SQL and whatnot, so I was okay. But wow, what a way to learn. And yet, years later, like there's no other tool I'd rather engage the world around me with. So that's why I'm here. I'm part of Tableau now for a few years. I'm on the product team. I wear a bunch of different hats. Very fortunate to get to spend a big part of my time with customers and community, which is why I'm excited about this. And so thank you so much for just taking the time to be here. I hope we give you something of value. I always joke, if I can't inform, at least I can entertain. I'll begin by telling you a story of one of my first, some experience I have, exposure I have to retail. There's a member of my family, I won't name them so you don't Google them, who works for one of the biggest retailers in the US. And this is actual footage, I think, of one of the roughly 60,000 retail team members affected by a data problem. A data engineer responsible for working on store operations, they're troubleshooting an issue where like stock instructions were not quite right. Like team members were going to shelves and finding they were already restocked. and they all have these mobile devices that tell them what to do next, and it's really great. But they would go and find like the stock they were looking for wasn't there, or the shelves were wrong. Something was wrong, and so they're trying to troubleshoot this. And this data engineer is working fast, trying to put out a problem. Stores are complaining. They're there at corporate. It's late on a Friday, and they were looking at the specific query that they thought was the problem. And so they changed the time range a little bit to see if they fixed it. They reran it, and they reran the data load, and they changed the filter again. And then something struck them, and they thought, well, what if I just remove the predicate altogether and run this data load in production? And next thing you know, roughly 18,000 store members were immediately notified with all the restocking instructions from like the day prior all over again, started to replay. And it was complete chaos. It was this image you see here, just people running around stores going, what is going on? All their devices lighting up going, put toilet paper on this shelf, put eggs over here. And it was all wrong, complete chaos, like vice presidents involved. And this family member called me and said, I think somebody's going to get fired over a data issue. And that is just such a real world, like retail. So like the work we do is really important. Or in another case, the retailer found out that gift cards were suddenly being blocked in every single store. Now, every retailer has some fraud detection, and they have some block lists for cards and so on. And so customers are frustrated, though, because people start to check out and all their cards were being blocked as fraudulent. Every card, not just a couple of cards, every card was blocked as fraudulent. And so again, an analyst had to go in and dig through the data. And what they found with their analysis pretty quickly was in the ranges of blocked cards, there was a place where you could block individual cards as fraudulent, but also to save time, there was a place where you could put in a range of card numbers. Let's say everything from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1, 5, 2, 3, and everything in between would be blocked. And somebody had punched in the wrong value. And in fact, it even had come from a third-party data feed. So it was even worse. It wasn't one of their colleagues. It was a third-party data feed that they trusted. And instead of blocking a range of 1,000 cards, it blocked 1 trillion cards, which turned out to be the entire addressable number space. And so for a period of time, every single gift card was blocked. And it's funny how these things like have real world impact. When this happened, my daughter was like, hey, I was at the store and they wouldn't take my gift card. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know about this. And I said, your relative actually helped figure out what was wrong with that and solved and fixed it. So we know that data is hard, and the data quality is a challenge, and that analysis and visualization and exploration help us to solve those problems. So now, like, what's my experience with this? Well, one of the first projects I did, and it's always fun / embarrassing to show my dashboards because I'm not Iron Viz, I'm Jello Viz. I am one of the people who actually is on the visionary selection committee, which is ironic because I know Tableau really well, and yet I've never been a very good designer. So you can make fun of me all you want. It's all deserved. And this was one of the visualizations I did for a retailer showing them this KPI decomposition. This is probably Tableau 7. So this is really old stuff. You can see it's 13 years old. And that really helped me understand. It was the first time I'd really worked on retail analytics, starting to understand exactly how they think about the basket analysis and thinking about categories and thinking about discounting. One of the problems that this customer asked me, they said, we were interested in, when we talk to our vendors, we want to understand whether the discounting is effective. So for example, let's say that, let's pick something that isn't relevant to this one. I love Starbucks coffee. So if I go into my grocery store, since I know you like your HEB, right? If I go into my grocery store and I'm really craving some of those Starbucks double shots. I love those, by the way, those little prefab, like 2 shots of espresso in a cream can. Man, if I'm on a long bike trip, I grab those. I love those things. So if I walk in there and I'm going to go on my shopping list is buy a bunch of Starbucks double shots for the weekend bike trip, and they do a buy 2, get 1 free, they're just giving me free coffee because I was going to pay for it anyway, right? But if I was going to walk in there and get, and what's another coffee brand that's not part of that Starbucks, got a Pete's prefab coffee or anybody else's prefab coffee, and I'm reaching for it on the shelf, and then I see, ooh, Starbucks double shots, buy two, get one free, and I switch, well, then that discounting was effective. Well, that is a really interesting business question. Is my discounting effective? But translating that question into real value is what we're after. So I'll talk a little bit about like what my experience was working on that kind of thing, and where the technology can help us. I think in the next few minutes. Just one more example from that effort. And again, this is ugly as sin, and I've lost the background. I had to find this old workbook and dig it up. But I bet you all know what this is. I had to learn. They had to tell me what this is. Anybody know the word for what this is? Picture some shelves behind this, the background image for which I have lost long since. You know what this is called? Yes, it's a planogram. So they had all this data with planograms of where products go on shelves, but then they also had all these interesting metrics about sales and conversion and category similarity and effective discounting and so on. And they wanted to be able to pull up any planogram and overlay that. Again, the power, freedom, flexibility of Tableau meant we could do that. Is if you can dream it, you can build it. So that's part of what I've grown to love about Tableau over the years is freedom, flexibility, and choice. Like no matter what the question, no matter what the data, we can answer it. We can visualize it. The answer may be that's not a great idea or that's not a great visualization. But if the question is, can we do it? We definitely can. So then this is really what got my journey going. This is one of my first consulting projects with Tableau and got me on this journey to go from a consultant to consulting leader and eventually to become part of the product team at Tableau and work on the product. But as cool as all that is, I think the thing we've realized now is that actually, as powerful as Tableau is at solving this problem of like, can I connect to any data, model any data, visualize it, and understand it? It still is too hard. Like those projects that I worked on that resulted in this really powerful analysis took a lot of work, like teams of people. And I think I have this slide in here in a second. Like there had to be complex, we didn't even have level of detail calculations when I did this, complex table calculations. We often had to put some of the analysis work upstream in the data warehouse. That made it less flexible, but it got us a little better performance. Integration and embedding wasn't great. Translating the insights into action was hard. And just in general, the paradigm has always been passive. Tableau is amazing, but Tableau doesn't do anything until I tell it to. Tableau doesn't do anything until I open it. Most BI tools don't do anything until you open them and start asking questions. So what we've been asking ourselves is, what if you could do more? Like all the bits that Tableau does so powerfully, the upstream bits of connecting to any data, modeling it, data quality, transformation, all that. The visual analysis itself, any sort of visualization, building rich analytical applications. The downstream piece, hooking into workflows, driving exploration. There's all kinds of things we can do with workflow capability that's in Tableau today and extensions. And also, let's call it the outbound piece, reaching more users. We now have Tableau Pulse. So for those who go, well, I don't really like dashboards and the exploratory experience of Tableau is too much for me, use Tableau Pulse, engage with that data, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second. What if you could do all those things, but if you could do them easier and faster? And so credit to the colleague who built this slide, because every bit of what you see on the screen is things that Tableau has been doing for 20 years. Collaboration, insights, answers, solutions, a marketplace to some degree, data transformation, et cetera. But we know we can do all those things in a more actionable way, more automated way, more scalable way, more composable. That's what we've been thinking about quite a bit, because there's been this, not only a change in user expectations, but also a change in the technology. The example I use, and bonus points if you know what this is a screenshot of. By the way, I know you're old if you know what this is a screenshot of. Anybody? Anybody? Oh man, I am old. That's sad. That's okay. This is a game called King's Quest V. It was a DOS adventure game built in 1990, which I guess does tell you how old I am. I loved this game. It was super fun. And you went on this quest and you had a bunch of traveling companions, and there was a lot of peril, and you could fall in quicksand or die of parched dehydration in the desert. And hopefully if you achieved all these things, I don't even remember what the goal was. You like found a princess or solved a riddle or something. And I feel like for too long, that was the paradigm of analytics, which was, for this particular customer who said, well, we want to scalably answer questions like, does our discounting work? And are we selling the right things at the right times? And do we have our category mix correct? And how do we relate to our competitors and all those things? It was just too darn hard. At the time when I did that project that I just showed you screenshots of, I mean, we had a visualization consultant, that was me. We had like a Teradata consultant. We had a project manager. We had probably somebody from some big four, and it took like a whole team. In other words, it was like Lord of the Rings. We had to leave the safety of the Shire just to solve these business problems and get a whole like eclectic band of companions and go on a big quest. And I just say like, no more, like no more. That like 30 years ago, it took millions of dollars to answer those kind of questions and a ton of hard work and custom code. Like 10, 12, 15 years ago, you could use Tableau and it was no code, but there still was a lot of work that went into getting that analysis. All that upstream stuff about data was hard. The downstream impact was hard. Well, thankfully, there is this explosion of technology that has given this what I've described as an opportunity and an obligation to evolve. And we call that at Salesforce, we call that Agentforce. And it's simply a platform layer. It's part of Salesforce that has all these transformative AI technologies, from large language models to predictive modeling, machine learning, all those bits, and done in a way that's scalable and secure and integrated, because we want, if I'm kind of, let's say, crude about it, we sort of want ChatGPT for our data. But we all realize like how hard that is. Have you ever had a business user like ask you a question and the question they asked isn't the question they actually intended? There had to be some interface. There was an example of this recently where our CEO asked a business question and people brought him the data he asked for, and it wasn't actually what he wanted. He actually had a different question. Like, it actually turns out it's really hard to understand what people want. Well, this new technology actually solves that problem. It solves what I would call the love languages of data. So we have this opportunity and obligation to evolve. I'll speak briefly about what I mean by the love languages of data. So back in the day, the only way to work with data was stacks of punch cards and manual tabulation and an abacus. So that's way back in the day. And then a little bit later, once we got in the era that I started in with computers that plugged into the TV or Microsoft DOS, I mean, I used Lotus 1, 2, 3 for DOS. In those spreadsheets, if you wanted to work with data, you probably had to write custom code. So I started writing C++ for DOS, and later I learned Visual Basic for applications. Even if you used a kind of GUI tool like Microsoft Access, you still had to be pretty technical and learn some SQL. And what I've learned doing this, or at least my view now, is that actually there are a bunch of different love languages of data. I'll explain. So for those of us who use, let's say, Tableau Desktop, that's a drag and drop experience. And it's absolutely transformative because you don't have to know any code. You just drag and drop. It's visual, it's instant, it's direct, and we do the hard yards of translating into PostgreSQL syntax or into querying a web service or whatever it is. You don't have to think about all those dialects. It's like the Google Translate of sorts. But for others, that conversational or search experience is how they want to interface with data. Now, if I'm a power user of Tableau, I don't want to chat with my data actually, because I got my keyboard shortcuts down. If you've seen IronViz, if you had to do IronViz with conversational analytics, it would take you ages. You'd never get it done in 20 minutes because practitioners want to use power tools and go fast. Like for focused work like that, conversational is not, but for business users, it really helps because they can ask it the way they think about it. And maybe it isn't quite in analytical terms. And the large language models can dialogue with them to figure it out. There are those for whom code is the way they engage with data. Now, I've tried to convince data scientists to use the drag and drop Tableau desktop experience. And they go, no, actually, I think this way. I think in Python. So we got to meet them where they are, not try to convert them to speak a different language. Some people, particularly data scientists, also really like the notebook type experience. Your designers tend to like that canvas. Finance people like their spreadsheets. Why can't we speak all those love languages of data? This is a Trivial Pursuit wheel. If you play Trivial Pursuit, you win Trivial Pursuit when you get all 6 categories. That's why I chose this image, because I feel like the winning combination is actually the platform that can meet everyone where they are, not just in the applications they work in, but also the ways they think about data. So what you're going to see more from us doing is more of we're calling it ambient analytics or analytics everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's infused in the flow of work. Much less will the analytics of the future be, I'm working in my ERP, or I'm working in my CRM, and I leave that and I go to some other tool like Tableau to get my insights. The insights, first of all, should come to you, should be automatic. Second of all, they should come to you in the way that you think about it. And you should be able to engage with data the way that you think about it. If drag and drop is your preference, we got you. If the kind of spreadsheet columns and rows thing is your preference, we got you. Like, we're no longer allergic to tables. And AI is in the center because to some degree, it is the Google Translate. It's the thing that is the lingua franca. What I don't have in this diagram is the criticality then of semantics. Because what I see some customers do today is they go, well, our data science teams, they don't use Tableau. They've built their own models, their own notebooks. And then we got a little Gen AI sub project over here where someone's gone and licensed like ChatGPT and stuck it straight on Snowflake. And what they find is they get different answers to the same question. But you need to have your business users speaking the same language as your analysts, as your developers, as your data scientists, as your admins, everyone speaking the same language. And that's why we're investing so much in data modeling and semantics. But okay, I'm going to run out of time if I don't move a little faster. So I'll just kind of bring us toward the Q&A with this. Here's how we see this all evolving from like a platform perspective. Because what we know in Tableau today of the data connectivity, modeling, visualization, and action, we know that there's a need to expand that with richer, broader semantics. On that data layer in particular, I used to think of Tableau as connecting to all data. And then I realized that actually there's types of data that we don't really think about as being like Tableau data. For example, what about documents and contracts? Like no law firm, there are a bunch of law firms that use Tableau. No law firm today is saying, oh, I've got 3,000 contracts I need to analyze. Let's use Tableau for that. They use some other tooling. But that's also data. Unstructured and semi-structured data is data. So we're expanding the aperture with what we're calling Tableau powered by Agentforce or Tableau Einstein into a broader world of more data, richer and composable data modeling, because we realize how critical that is. And just this different world of like a one-to-many, where you'll model and define your insights and metrics in Tableau, and they can serve all those users. I'll go back one slide. No matter what language they speak of data. I've got a ton more, and I've got demos and stuff, but I've only got 5 more minutes, and I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. I got one call to action for you. You want to learn more about this? Follow me on LinkedIn for sure, and follow Tableau. But the one call to action I would have for everybody is come to Tableau conference. I can't wait. We're no longer going to Vegas, which makes me happy. We're going to San Diego, which is beautiful and sunny. So hope to see you there. And again, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation. All right, that's our kind of, Matthew's thoughts on the future of analytics. I would love to get your reactions, and we've got 5 minutes for Q&A. So I don't know how you want to run this, Ojo and Blake, but the floor is open.
Thank you, Matthew. This was very helpful. Feel free with your questions. Everyone who's listening, this is a one-time opportunity to ask your personal, important Tableau questions, most important, to Matthew. And while you are scanning and setting yourself up for the conference, I have another call to action coming off this is do sign up for our March edition, which is coming up on March 14th. Our guest star speaker is going to be Chimdi. He's worked in retail. You don't want to miss this. Any questions, hit it up on the Q&A. I have a question for Matthew, and there is an Easter egg on his LinkedIn profile as well. So if you can find that, that'll be cool. So Matthew, I've heard you speak. I haven't missed a single one of your show and tells, and that's a lot of following to do because you are famous. You speak a bit, and I'm a fan of your show and tell because it's actionable. It flows well. There's a direction to it. So the question that sort of keeps me up is the OG, the Tableau original. And I've asked you, and I have the answer, but for the interest of everyone who's listening in, I want to put it on records. What do you think? Is the original Tableau going away? Those people who have spent years, maybe decades, learning the art of working on Tableau desktop, is there any hope for them? How would they upskill?
Oh, this is such a good question. So first of all, I don't see us pivoting at all. I think it's an expansion. That's why I show that Trivial Pursuit wheel. I think though, when we launched Tableau 21, 22 years ago, we thought everyone will learn this language. Have you ever heard of the language called Esperanto? Esperanto is a made-up language, and it was like a fad in, I want to say, like the 70s. Everyone's going to learn this made-up language called Esperanto, or Klingon. Like, it's an artificial language that everyone's going to adopt. Well, some people did, but it wasn't the language for everyone. I'm not sure that's the best analogy, but like, I think we thought everyone in the world, everyone, truck drivers, CEOs, they're all going to drag and drop, and a lot of people did. Like, we're a multi-billion-dollar business with millions of users. It just turned out that wasn't enough for everyone. So that isn't going away. That's super foundational. Visual analytics is the core of what we do. But I can give you a few examples of how we sort of realized that that was a little narrow. For example, text. We used to think text is bad. It's got to be a chart. Now we don't hate text. We realize conversational is valuable. You'll see like the metric insights that I have insight summaries in Pulse. But that's okay. This is all powered by Gen AI. People like to see text. What we've realized is people will build a visual that's compelling and put a narrative along the side. So we've learned that. And of course, interacting with, this is a bleeding edge, by the way, dev environment, but I can flex my authority and just show it off anyway. This is like using Tableau Pulse. This is not even released yet. This is multi-metric search, like asking insights that span multiple metrics. And of course, it's probably not going to work because this is a dev site that's being pushed new code all the time. But the point is, like, these new experiences and new ways of thinking are an expansion. They're still in service of that same mission. It's a great question. So if you are a Tableau expert today, though, I will say this. I think there's a trend away from what I'm calling artisanal visualization for everything. Like, part of what Pulse has kind of shown us is that the overwhelming majority of visualizations that are built in Tableau are a big number, a time series, like a bar chart with a drill down. So, like, you shouldn't have to drag and drop to build that. Like, that's not high value work. The high value work is finding the real insights. It's curating the metrics. It's curating the semantic models. So we're moving toward a world where, let's say, the basic stuff is automated. So definitely my focus, if I were an analyst today, would be on, let's say moving up the stack, letting the technology automate the grunt work of building charts and building dashboards as much as possible, really focusing on what an analyst's value is, which is understanding both the business and the data and curating the models, because now you have both humans and AI working equally with it. So that's, I think, the way the role of the analyst is changing. But no, visualization is not going away at all. I think the way we're going to get there will often be different. If you start from a conversational experience like this, we may generate a chart for you using Tableau that didn't exist a second ago. That's a way better result for the business user than having to file a ticket and wait for an analyst to build it by hand. So in that way, I think the role of the analyst is changing. There will still definitely be a place, though, for bespoke artisanal analytics, handcrafted dashboards, and tailored analytical apps. My hunch, though, is the automated stuff will take about half of that workload and free us up to work on higher value things.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. This is very helpful. The tail end of the question was, for someone who's a practitioner of Tableau who has spent years, or companies who have invested in Tableau, how can they keep their workforce up to date? Is there a trailhead or something that they can follow to be ready when the new product on the cloud hits mainstream?
Yeah, good question. I think the main bridges forward are, first of all, semantics. Like, today, some customers use embedded data sources primarily, some published. If you're not using published data sources, start building more published data sources. In other words, move away from a model where I build a little data model, just enough. It's not very good. I don't put any metadata in it. I don't clean up my calculations. I don't put comments. It's just enough to build a viz, and then I ship the viz. Sort of one model per viz, or one model per workbook, or per dashboard. That model should go away. You should stop doing that. I would move toward more of a one-to-many. Build really well curated published data sources, because the better metadata you can put in those, the more reuse you can facilitate. Obviously, that helps humans for self-service, but it also helps the AI to get better benefits. So I think published data source is the first one. The second is you can start using Pulse, because Pulse is part of that, like automatically generated, proactive. It's that different model for consuming that I feel sits alongside analytical apps and dashboards and self-service. Start using Pulse more. Pulse is part of the current platform. It's part of the Evolve platform. That whole metrics concept is a real evolution for us, because we never gave it like an opinion about your data, right? You had to encode that, make it green, have an up arrow. Now you can encode that at the metrics layer. So I would start using Pulse. And maybe the third is to start training users to think about non-deterministic engagement. So that's like using Tableau agent, getting them accustomed to asking a question and getting maybe a different view of that answer. The numbers should be the same, right? But the answer might be different. That non-deterministic nature of large language models, get people used to engaging with technology that way. And you can start them, start with analysts using Tableau agent. Yeah, we have it in prep as well. That's, I think, maybe a third thing. Blake, I saw you have a question. What's the biggest challenge we have to consider proactively as we move toward the AI-driven future? I think it is that one about data modeling. So we've worked a ton to make the data models in Tableau more flexible. I still run into customers who do like the explicit joins, the physical joins. I know this is a tug, and we're going to shoot entirely from the hip here with zero preparation, because that's what we do. I'm just going to go in Tableau and illustrate what I mean by making a new data source. When I go and make a data source here and make a connection, I can do this with, these are logical entities. And then if I double click into those, these are physical. So I can do explicit joins. It's a tug, right? We can show real product and do a demo ad hoc. So I see people just go, well, I don't understand the relationships feature. So they just go in and do physical joins because that's what they know. But the power, and you need to do that in certain cases when you have explicit relationships between tables. But the power of relationships and the relationship feature is this is a loose coupling. So you can call it like late binding or lazy joining. And it enables you to build really rich, broad models that pull in all kinds of different data, because I can pull together Snowflake with Excel files, with web services, all into one rich model. The broader you can make that model, the better both your self-service and your AI experiences will be. So take the time to curate these, add good comments in your data sources like this, right? Add comments in your calculated fields. The more you can do to prepare those and make them broad and basically as wide as possible and as deep as is performant, as granular. So if you see people going, well, we have the transaction level, but we create these monthly aggregates. Yeah, maybe that's fine for reporting, but for AI, you want to give the AI the room to roam. Anyway, that's I think that the semantic layer, preparing that, doing that properly, is maybe the biggest like shift for people from the way that I see people use Tableau sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't see, oh yeah, there is one last question from Amanda. If you hide unused fields, would they show up on a published data source or Pulse? The answer is no.
I love this. This is so great. I should hang out with more tugs. I'm actually wearing one of my like certified Tableau shirts. Though I am a talking head, I have every Tableau certification. I'm proud of that. Even the server CP 7-hour exam, I passed it. I'm rusty, and I've trained thousands of people in my past life. I love these kind of questions. Yes, absolutely. When you are in the authoring experience, we have this hide unused fields. As you know, you may not know, when you hide unused fields, that excludes them from hyper extracts for one. It also does not expose them in Pulse. But also in Pulse, and I actually may have it open. Oh, never mind, that's my calendar. Never mind. Let's not do that. In Pulse, you can, in the metric definition, you can include which dimensions you want to have as a slicer, and that's also metadata that's fed to the model. It's a great question. When you hide unused fields, they don't show up in the published data source or in Pulse. That said, though, they are there in the metadata. So an author who has the rights to download the published data source locally can unhide them and see them. So they aren't removed. Just like when you publish a workbook, you may know that when you publish it and you select those sheets to show on cloud or server, that doesn't actually remove them from the workbook. It just doesn't expose the tabs, but they're still there in the workbook. We do the same approach with the hide fields. Great question. That'd be a good certification question. Okay. I'm way over my time. I'm happy to keep answering questions, but I can toss it back to y'all if you want.
Thank you so much, Matt. I think you're off the hook. You might have to leave the strategy session in there so that if anyone finds it, we have a giveaway.
I love it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Can't thank you enough.
Great. I can stay on for a few minutes if you want. If there might be other questions, or I can drop if we're.
You're more than welcome to stay along because we have a bit of show and tell on the Data+TV. So you're going to love.
Oh, good.
That.
Then I want to stay. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. And once again, I'll echo the same that Ojo just shared. Thank you, Matthew. Great presentation. I think that's super informative and helpful from my perspective about what to expect for the future here. Flipping back over to the slides here. The next thing that we have in store for y'all is actually a collab with the Data+TV community project over at Tableau. So I'm sure you've heard of it by now. If you haven't, I would be surprised. But Data+TV is a project where IMDb partnered up with Tableau, and we got a great curated data source. And we're actually looking to get some community involvement with the retail tug. So I've got a couple examples from our host today that we're going to dive into on, what you can sort of do with this data set. But additionally, a call to action to y'all is go ahead and take a stab at the Data+TV data set yourself. Upload something onto Tableau Public and share that out on social media or in Slack using #RetailTug. And we will be awarding prizes to the some of those strongest submissions. So please come out, take a stab at making whatever TV show you're watching. I feel like we're all watching something nowadays. So please, if you haven't joined the Slack already, we've got a QR code up in the top corner. And with that, I'll start jumping into some of the host examples here. Just a second. I can go ahead and go first here. But I went ahead and I filtered down straight away in my Data+TV adventure down to South Park, one of my favorite shows, been around for a long time. And a couple things that I was super curious about are, we've got the two creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and so many characters at this point across 26 seasons. What does the ratio of voice actors to characters start to look like, right? So focusing on that middle left section first, I filtered down to just the top 6 voice actors based on the number of different characters that they are playing. And you can start to see that, even though there are over 2,400 different characters, Trey Parker's making up over 1,000 of those, and Matt Stone is over 800. So additionally, looking up in the top right, I've got all of the different episodes across the 26 seasons and benchmarking their IMDb ratings over time. So a fun little action that I threw in here as well is, say we have a particular interest in, maybe Mr. Garrison over here that Trey Parker voices. If we click on this dot over in this jitter bar plot, this chart in the top corner is going to update. So I can see all the different episodes that feature Mr. Garrison and, start to play around and explore the data that way. So, maybe it's Kathy in particular. And here's that one episode. If we hover over and see that Viz and tooltip here, season 5, episode 11. And we get a little thumbnail picture as well here and a little description. So I thought that was a pretty nifty way to, use some of these actions here. It's just a filter action, but that was a fun little touch. And then lastly, I was curious to see, of all the voice actors here that are a part of South Park, how long have they all been around? So I've got just a Gantt bar chart here, sorted by the length that each of these voice actors have been with the program. So you can start to see Isaac Hayes. He was the voice actor for Chef, who, if you remember Chef from back in the day, he had passed away back in 2006, but you can see, where he starts to fall off and where other people have come in more recently. So that's what I'd pulled together for Data+TV. One of the many different things that we can start to curate. But with that, happy to answer any questions. But if not, Ojo, I can hand it over to you if you want to share what you pulled together with Data+TV.
Absolutely, Blake. Thank you. Your work is fantastic. We have a Slack channel, and we encourage you to share your work. There is a Data+TV promo that we are going to share we encourage you to share it. There are prizes to be won. Let's put it simple and straight, right? And this is going to happen. This window is going to stay open until we meet next time in March on the 14th. Chimdi is coming here, so RSVP first. Work on your Data Plus TV, share it. There are prizes to be given away. We are also going to be giving away our logo and banner contest winners shortly after, so hang around. It's going to be get more fun soon. Without much ado, let me open my not so exciting yet very analytically intense Data Plus TV work that I did with Andy Codegreave on the live channel in October, I believe. And because I'm so awesome, I'm going to work with you on this retail tug thingy and build something fancier so that we have something better to look at. So what we have here is a scatter plot, or a jitter plot, for a better word, where we have three of my favorite sci-fi Star Trek series. The columns, 1 all the way till 7, are the 7 seasons of these 3 Star Trek series. And each of these series, each of these seasons have 20, 23 different episodes. And I've planned them and I've given an average rating for each of them. So when you look at it, it probably might be a bit busy, but once you start reading it, and I should improve it by describing what this chart is trying to tell. Each season has a bunch of episodes going from all the way to 23. Let's look at the Star Trek Deep 1993. It has an average user rating of 7, with the IMDb rating of 9 for Series 1, Episode 19. That's one of the best here in Season 1. But if you look at the entirety of all the episodes ever, 9.4, that's the one getting called out here, is the highest rating ever. So this Season 6, Episode 19 received the highest ever rating. And the crappiest one is the 3.3 Season 2 of Star Trek 1987, right? And I think Andy Codgrave knows why, because probably didn't have any script writer in Hollywood, so they tore down a bunch of episodes from the past and they created this, and obviously it didn't do as well. I can see right off the bat there is another IMDb rating 5, which is pretty low. All of this, the data starts talking to you, and that's where the power of Tableau is. There's another 9.4, which is the same as this 9.4, but it happened for another series 5 of Star Trek 87. So we have a few high pointers which are called out and the low ones called out here. The average values, you can see they go up as they mature into the season and then dwindle down towards the end, with the exception of the Star Trek Voyager, where the last episode was almost at par with this last season. Season 7 was almost at par with 7.6. How did I build it without getting too technical? The data set's there. It's very easy to, I'm going to share the link so that it's easy for you to find it. I downloaded the workbook from the web, and then I massaged it around, cleaned it a bit, put some filters, and then dragged and dropped the season number, episode number onto the columns, the series title to the rows, and then I brought in the average on the rows as well. What do I have here? I have reference lines. So anyone who's used reference lines, these are coming from here. And then I plot them. I dragged in the title to break it out at the level of detail of every title under every season. What I did is I threw in a build along video so that you can further break it down and follow along. And I've published it to my Tableau public. Hope that gives you a starting point. And with that, I'll turn it back to Blake. Take it away.
Awesome. I absolutely love those jitter plots, Ojo. So I think that's a great way to start to visualize, data as big as Data+TV is. And we do actually have our third host, Matt Huff, here, who's connected with us. So, Matt, I know you pulled together a viz for Chuck. If you'd like to speak to that, I'd be happy to drive for you over here, and we can work together.
Yeah, that would be great. It's kind of hard to navigate on an iPad, so I appreciate that. But I created a visual for Chuck. One of the, and this is probably a show that most of you have never heard of, but it was ran for about 5 seasons, and it was actually a pretty popular show. It's the whole premise behind it is there's a guy who inadvertently downloads a government computer into his mind, and is on the run from the CIA and the NSA, and so it's really kind of a fun story. It's about all the things I care about, anything nerdy, and they pretty much cover it. And so it's a fun show. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do that. And it was pretty well received, just with an 8.2 rating, right? As far as who's in it, so you've got Zachary Levi, who played Shazam. You've got Yvonne, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name, but I know she was in The Handmaid's Tale, and she's been in a couple of other big things since. So there's a fair amount of actors here who have gone on to do some other pretty cool things, and or have been very prominent in the sci-fi community prior to that. So that's generally kind of what the what the background of the show is. Imagine the main character working in a Best Buy is the equivalent. And he works on the Geek Squad for the Best Buy, or in this case, the Nerd Herd, which is why you have that logo up above. But the show was kind of doomed from the start, and as you look at the competitors, you'll start to see why pretty quickly. So specifically in like the comedy section, you've got a bunch of shows like The Office, Arrested Development, and then one of the other top shows that was kind of on around the same time that you may have heard of was Parks and Recreation. That didn't even make the top list here. So lots of really good shows, very stiff competition, and so it's no surprise really that Chuck generally was struggling to be relevant, right? Even though it had a great cast and a bunch of really impressive guest actors, it struggled a bit. And so one of the things that I'm calling out here is there really was only one reason that the show survived, and you can see it there at the bottom, and that's actually because of Subway. And so one of the things that you'll see is Subway around the same time that this show came out was sponsoring a lot of TV shows. Chuck just happened to be one of those. Quite frankly, some of my favorite parts of the show were the shameless advertising that they would have throughout the show on the $5 footlong and whatnot. But this was something that you saw in shows like Hawaii Five-0. Community did some of this as well. But really, this Subway is what kept this show alive for an extra 3 seasons. Which I think is kind of impressive. And then more importantly, not only did it keep it alive, but it actually didn't impact the ratings at all, as you look over there on the right. And so it's one of those things where, coming from a world of advertising, this is kind of a big deal, right? As I think about the impact that advertising had on Chuck, it saved the show, but didn't actually harm the show from the ratings perspective. And I think that's kind of an interesting insight to take away. So that was what I had pulled together. So, Blake, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, awesome work, Matt. I think I had never seen Chuck beforehand, but you'd showed me that they've got a cake theme or a cake intro, so that was that's enough to get me curious. So.
Yeah, what I'll say is the theming and the coloring here was done for a very specific reason. So, at the very least, go check out the opening intro to Chuck, and you'll see exactly why I have it set up this way. So,
awesome. With that, let me go ahead and flip my screen once more over here. Awesome. So yeah, again, just echoing the same sentiment here to everyone out on this call and everyone in the Slack. If you're not in the Slack, join the Slack. We've got a QR code in the top corner here, and show us what you can pull together. Share your favorite TV show. Maybe it's about the worst TV shows of all time or the best of all time. Or dive into a specific show. We'd love to see what you all can create. Chuck is 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Another great reason to watch it. Perfect. And yeah, with that takes us to our last segment for today. So as you all know, we've been running a logo contest for the past couple months here. We got 6 spectacular submissions from the community here. So I want to give everyone a minute to analyze some of these different designs for our potential logo for this retail and consumer goods tug. So we'd like to, in the same way that we crowdsourced some inspiration, we'd like to lean on the community to make a decision out of these final 6. So in that Slack channel, again, in that top right corner, if you missed it the first time, we'll go ahead and post a poll in there. And we'll leave that poll open probably up until our next meeting with Chimdy come March. But yeah, would love to see what you all think, and we'll do that official unveil in a couple months here. So that poll will be up in Slack in just a few minutes here. I only have 2 hands though, unfortunately. And with that, Matt, I can pass this to you if you want to talk a bit about continuing the conversation in Slack.
Yeah, so just wanted to let you guys know that we're gonna be using that Slack channel for general communication. So think about this as a way to expand your network. I know there's a handful of other folks in there, but as you guys have questions and whatnot, this is a great opportunity to connect with other like-minded professionals. If you've got a viz that you're working on, we'd love to see it and provide feedback or not, or just share it with the community. We'd love to see it. Thanks, Matt. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a job board in there so that you can see, as you're aware of job postings. Would love for you guys to be able to have visibility into that. And probably the most important is this really is for everyone here and just kind of everyone that engages with our small community. But if there's anything that you guys want to cover, like, we would be more than happy to get your thoughts and perspective on some of that. And so that's ultimately what we're looking to accomplish with that. And so hopefully that's value added perspective and gives you some insight into how you can connect and get feedback and work with us. We'd love to see that. So thanks.
Perfect. And with that brings us to the end of our regularly scheduled program over here. So just a minute over, not too bad this time around. But yeah, feel free to, again, scan that QR code on the right to join the Slack. Alternatively, the other QR code on the left now will let you RSVP for our upcoming meeting as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you all there in March. And thanks for joining this week. Yeah, great to have you all.
Thank you, Matt and Blake. To summarize, join the 14 Chimdies coming, send in your Data+TV work, publish it to TP, share the link with us on Slack or email us. Once you land on the invite page for the next event, all the details are out there. The existing logos and the banners, what have you, have already been posted. Vote on it, let us choose, and send across the winners the swag that they deserve. It's been going on for a while, and we wanted to make our retail tug look fancy and pretty. Help us out. See you until next time. Take care.